Hey y'all, welcome to the OK Den Show. I am Titia Owens, the Madre.
Hey, I am Chyna Elizabeth, the daughter. Welcome back to the show.
We are so glad that you all have tuned in today. Have y'all gotten y'all's hat? Have y'all gotten the lipstick hat that I've been wearing on these past few episodes? If you have not, go to tailorwaist.com, TAILORWAIST, and get your hat today. Okay, then?
Yes, and before y'all get into the show, go ahead and make sure y'all subscribing and following us on Instagram as well. OK Den Show on everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyway, so let's jump right into the show. Again, I am Titia Owens, and we are so excited today to have one of the most super-tastic, awesome-rific, fabulous lawyers across the world. Do you understand what I'm saying? This young lady right here is who I call the Beyonce of lawyer mint.
There you go.
My friend is here with us, and I'm going to let her talk a little bit about herself, but we're so excited to have this young lady. Tell the ladies and gentlemen who you are today.
Yes.
I am Keisha Toni Russell. I am a former teacher. I taught special education in Atlanta, and I'm a constitutional lawyer. I work for an amazing organization called First Liberty Institute, and we litigate religious liberty cases for free.
Wow.
Ooh, for free.
For free 99.
Free 90 and some 9.
Yeah.
And so, Keisha, let's go back to, you said you were a teacher. So, by you being a teacher, Chyna, she said she's specified in what area?
Special needs.
Special needs.
Yeah.
So, kind of talk about that.
Yeah, so right before that, I guess I should preface it with I became a Christian.
Okay.
And I felt like I wanted to give God not just my life, but my profession. Like I wanted my career to be something that he wanted. And I felt like at that point I was young enough to make that choice. And
Hold on.
yes.
You became a Christian.
Yeah.
Go back to that. You became a Christian at what age?
Okay.
How did that happen?
Okay.
Tell me that story.
Yeah.
So became a Christian my junior year in high school. So I did not grow up in church.
Okay.
Wow.
None of my family went to church. Well, my grandmother did, but she lived in a different state. So the only time I ever went to church is when I went with my grandmother.
Okay.
And so when I was 17, I went on this college tour, and it was a college tour sponsored by the Salvation Army. I didn't know they were a church. I thought it was, just a nonprofit, religious nonprofit. And I was saved on that trip.
Yeah.
And so after that, I went away to college and was kind of wayward for a while. I didn't really have a lot of direction in terms of what it meant to be a Christian or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so once I got out of college and moved to Atlanta and started kind of stabilizing my life, I found a church eventually, and that's when I started getting really serious about my faith. So I thought that would probably be around 23, 24 maybe.
Okay.
And then eventually I ended up kind of getting really serious about, okay, well, what do you want me to do, God, with my life? And he sent me to join an organization called Teach for America.
Teach for America, okay.
And I was placed in a special needs classroom, behavioral disorders, not just like intellectual disabilities, but behavioral disorders. And I taught 4th and 5th grade students that were way behind.
How was that?
That was challenging.
Yeah.
But it really changed me. It was the first time I experienced God working through me, and watching him change someone's life through me. And I became addicted to that feeling.
That's
just
amazing.
being used like that.
Yeah.
And it's something that's hard to explain unless you've experienced it. And I know that you guys have.
Yeah.
So it changed me because that was the first time in my life that I realized like those things that are instinctive in my character are not necessarily always good for God. And it forced me to change. So I'll give you an example.
Please do.
I was like super, about the business teacher, very loving to my students, but very matter of fact. And I would say the first couple months, since when, we're getting to know each other, we really like each other. The class, I've built a really strong culture. And I had this student who came up to me. He was adopted. And he came up, he said, I'm finished with my work. And I said, oh, very nice. Okay, go sit down. Where are you up? But what he was looking for was, oh my God, you did such a good job. You finished your work. And because I was in my groove, right, I just kind of dismissed him. And this is what changed. I saw him do this. like a very deflated, response. And then he just walked away. And it was, the Holy Spirit says to me, don't you do that again.
Wow.
Like, you find your excitement. You be excited for this kid. Yeah. And so that's when I started to think about, okay, just because a behavior is instinctual for me, or just because it's part of my personality, doesn't mean it's serving like what I'm doing. And so I started to adjust that aspect of my personality to better like love the kids.
That's
and
so good.
Serve them.
I think that's absolutely beautiful. What's beautiful about it is, first of all, you heard the Holy Spirit telling you, don't do that again.
Yeah.
You had to humble yourself and say, okay, this is an adjustment that I need to make immediately. And you made some changes instantly to better serve those students.
Yeah, and the thing that's really interesting about that aspect of my personality is that it's sort of developed over time.
Okay.
And I have learned to be more encouraging, more engaging, more like excited. I'm an extreme introvert by nature.
Yeah.
And I think teaching, you're saying it like you
Like, I agree. I'm the same way.
Okay.
Yeah, y'all are actually kind of twins.
Oh, are we?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, being that I know both of y'all.
Okay, then.
Yeah.
Okay. But that it forced me to not just sit and rest in who I am.
Exactly.
And allow God to develop me for the mission. And that particular trait has served me. Being able to say, well, just because I don't feel like talking or engaging or being excited, it doesn't mean that's not what this particular situation calls for.
Yeah.
And so it helped me kind of push past that sort of chronic introvert nature.
Yeah.
And bring out that extrovert when it's necessary.
No, definitely. I feel like I had to do that same process, even with the field I'm in, with doing makeup and making people feel beautiful and uplifting them and getting their spirits in the right atmosphere. It's like, you have to be right first, and you have to be okay. And just be open. I do not like to talk, but in the field I'm in, I have to.
Yeah.
It's like, you really don't have a choice. And it's been a challenge, but only by the grace of God.
Yeah.
I've been able to come out of my comfort zone and be a little more extroverted than I usually am.
But like you said, you realize, though, it better serves the individual.
Exactly.
And as believers, we are forever putting ourselves aside.
For sure.
In order for him to be glorified. So if that means talking more.
Yeah.
If it means encouraging more. Expressing more.
Yeah, so then I was like obsessed with Paul. I still kind of am in the Bible. Probably my favorite character in the Bible. But when he says, I've become all things to all men so that by all possible means I might save some. I really identified with that, scripture at the time. And I thought, what does he mean? Well, I don't think he means you just go off and be a sinner so you can save sinners.
Yeah.
He means he's adjusting himself to the situation so that he can be a better witness for Christ. And so at the time, I was just kind of obsessed with that idea. And I think that's one of the things I took away from that process.
That is so beautiful. So give me another, for instance, like, because I just think, first of all, I commend you for being a teacher that would assist those with special needs. That, for me, it's a special calling because you have to have a lot of patience.
For sure.
And not always knowing what to do, you have to rely on the Holy Spirit a lot.
Yeah.
So I would like for you to just share with me maybe another instance or so where those situations have come into place, because there are a lot of teachers that watch our show and a lot of moms that deal with kids that have special needs. And just to hear, as a teacher, you not having raised their children, but you still have compassion for them. Give us a scenario or two.
Well, there are few because of the type of, classroom environment I was teaching in. So I taught 4th and 5th grade in one classroom. I was expecting them to teach all subjects. It's a self-contained unit, which means I was their teacher for all classes, and
wow.
For those of you who don't know, usually if you're a special education teacher, you teach part of the day. Like you might be a reading teacher, usually reading or math or writing or something like that. One of the sort of fundamental core skills. But I did it all. And so I had a number of kids in the class, and I had to assess where they were individually in order to give them what they were missing. I had a lot of students, even though they were in 4th and 5th grade, they were reading at a first grade level or a second grade level.
Wow.
And so I had to figure out why each one of those individual students was doing that. Sometimes it was just confidence, you know. All of them I think had been at least somewhat neglected, because it's hard to meet a student's needs when they're acting out.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have to get that under control first. You have to get them to trust you. You have to let them know you believe in them. And then you have to figure out how to get them to believe in themselves.
Wow.
And so I guess the story would be, you know, my most difficult student, who was a 4th grader, and she lived in, you know, downtown Atlanta. I think they call it, well, I won't even say, but I will say it's a rough part of Atlanta.
Okay.
And she had a lot of adult problems. And it came out in the classroom a lot. You know, she said things she shouldn't have said, and she shouldn't even know what those things are.
Okay.
And so I had to, in order to reach those students, they have to believe that I want the best for them. And they have to trust me. And so I had to spend a lot of time on that before I could even start filling those academic gaps.
Wow.
And so that's what I did. I did a lot of like team building and like, what do you want to be when you grow up, or who do you want to make proud? And I would bring those things up all throughout class, and setting up a proper reward system for them that they knew good behavior would be rewarded and bad behavior would not.
Okay.
And so that, I would say that's probably the biggest thing. And I mean, the ending is pretty good. So I had, by the time I left, I had about 12 kids in my class, I think, which is a lot for a self-contained unit. Usually you only have 2 or 3 because those classes are, I mean, those students tend to be a handful.
Yeah.
But I was managing it pretty well. And so I kept getting more students. And by the time they left, those students had never passed the state test, and 80% of them passed reading.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was great.
That's awesome.
It was different, you know. It was cool, and I liked having that kind of impact on someone's life. And I felt like because they could read, even if they couldn't do anything else, I would tell them, if you can read, you can teach yourself anything. And so that was really important to me, to give that to them, and to allow God to use me to, you know, bring them to a different level.
That's so beautiful.
That's great.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a cool experience. But teaching is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard job. Certainly just as difficult as being a lawyer, just in a different way.
Yeah. So you go from teaching, and then how did you meet
Get to
up?
lawyer.
Yeah, so
lawyerhood.
I wasn't planning that, right? So okay, let me just tell, if you tell God he can do whatever he wants with your, make sure you mean it.
Okay, so say that again.
If you tell God he can do whatever he wants to do with your life, make sure you mean it.
Got it.
Because he is very serious about that promise. And so I started to feel restless in the classroom. So this is probably my 3rd year now. And I know this is not it. Like, I know this is not exactly what God wants me to do, but I feel like I'm in training.
Okay.
It kind of feels. But okay, I feel like it's time to go. What am I going to do next? So I had some ideas, and I kept feeling called, you know, pulled to law school, but not wanting to do that. I already had a master's at that point. I did not want to go back to school.
Got it.
Law school is 3 years. It's difficult, arduous, stressful.
Arduous. I love how you did
That's
that.
a vocabulary word.
It's arduous.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
So anyways, I didn't want to do it, but it kept showing up. And so I decided, okay, if I can get into a law school after not having thought about this or planned this, then I'm going to...
This or plan this. Go ahead.
Then I'm going to believe it's God if I get it, basically. That's what I was thinking. So I was like, there's just no way this is going to happen. So I, applied and ended up getting in to Emory.
Emory, honey.
There. Yeah, eventually. And it was a process, but the doors just kind of started opening once I said, okay, I'm just going to walk this way, and God will continue opening the doors, or he'll close them if this is not the right way. And once I started doing that, things changed very quickly. So
the next thing you know, you're a lawyer.
I know, right? Somebody gave me a whole license. A whole license, y'all.
That's amazing.
That is so super-tastic. So in your process of learning about being a lawyer and becoming a lawyer, what were some things that you were getting along the way where you were like, I don't want to do that, or, oh, I want to do that? Like, were you around people where you were picking up things from them? Like, what was that process like?
Well, I was fortunate enough that when I went to law school, probably my second year, once I got to Emory, I was being mentored by a rabbi.
Okay.
Who was a professor at the school, and he also was a religious liberty litigator, which I didn't know existed. So he kind of pulled me into that world. That's how I found out it existed. And he gave us some really challenging work as his interns and law clerks and things like that. And I knew I was doing work that no one else in my law school was doing at that point. We did work for the United Nations, or white papers. We were litigating and writing briefs, helping lawyers who were doing religious liberty cases in the public sector. And I mean, we did a lot of work, some of which we couldn't even talk about. So it was really interesting. And I think when I started realizing what kind of problems you could solve as a lawyer, that's when I was like, okay, this is the right thing for me. Because I liked solving the problem of children not knowing how to read and possibly changing their trajectory. But I wanted to do something that would have a even broader impact, and maybe even indirectly impact those students one day. I wanted to be able to do something more, and I felt like this was the profession. This was the right area for me.
Okay, so how did you overcome those times where you're like, you know what, this is just too much?
Oh man, there's so many of those.
Because law school ain't no joke.
You know what it is? It's when it's a Saturday, you're studying for exams or you're studying for the bar, okay? And your friend calls you at 11 a.m. What are you doing? Oh, I'm studying, Okay, all right. Well, I'll call you later. All right, cool, later. And they call you and it's like 8:30 p.m. And you're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm studying.
Still studying.
And they like don't believe you. They're like, there's no way you're still studying. And it's like, I definitely am, because it
was consuming.
Oh yeah. Like law school is not for the weak. And yeah, I'm sure there are some people who say that they were able to kind of float through law school. I don't know anyone who floats through the bar though.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of work, and it's something that I had to definitely focus in on and really be intentional about how much time I was spending in it, because, you get out of it what you put in.
Yeah, for sure.
And I wanted, to pass that bar exam and be a lawyer and the whole thing. So I would say, like, when you're on hour, 7 in a day of studying, or I can remember this moment taking the Texas bar exam. Okay. And I was on day 2, or that was 2.5, because that Texas bar exam starts on Monday, which is a half a day. Tuesday is a whole day of multiple choice questions, 100 in the morning, 100 in the afternoon. And then that third day, when you're dead and haven't been sleeping, is 12 essays. 6 in the morning, 6 in the afternoon. You get 30 minutes to write each one. They're all about different areas of law, pulling out issues. No. And I remember this moment, getting to essay 9 on that exam and being like, I can't even believe I'm doing this. It's like, what level of hell is this test from?
No, literally.
That I'm having to do. I remember it hitting me like, this is so crazy. And I was just like, well, you got to do it. You need to pass this test. So I just kept going. And that's the trick for a test like that, is a lot of it is right here.
Yeah.
So you having to be mentally strong and pull yourselves out of those moments when you're like, I do not want to be doing this.
Yeah.
And I'm tired. And I just want to be on the couch asleep.
Wow.
Whatever.
12 essays.
Yes.
I don't want to do one essay.
It's serious business.
Oh my goodness.
My least favorite subject was oil and gas.
Oil and gas?
So not fun. Yeah. It's the worst.
Okay, oil and gas. Yeah, that doesn't sound
It's
exciting.
not.
It doesn't.
It's not.
Not even a little bit.
Those lawyers make money though.
I bet.
Yes. They do.
So there are various types of lawyers. Kind of talk about a few of those.
So yeah, the ones that most people know about are like criminal lawyers. So that could be divided into your defense lawyers and your prosecutors, right? When you prosecute crimes, and you have prosecutors all along the spectrum. There's state prosecutors, federal prosecutors, those that are working the special victims unit, which you guys know what that is because you've seen Law and Order.
For sure.
And then there's corporate lawyers. That's going to be your Suits, your Harvey Specters.
Yes.
And, they do the big time deals and all of
Suits.
that. Very Wall Streety.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that's, fun. Certainly,
Money.
yes. People, those lawyers earn a lot of money. And then you've got the nonprofit sector. And you have all these different family law on, you'll have bigger law firms and smaller law firms. Then you have the nonprofit sector, which is like what I do, an organization like the ACLU, where you litigate for free and you're what lawyers refer to as a cause lawyer in some way. You have a mission, a purpose.
Is that like a pro bono?
Yes. So those are lawyers that offer services pro bono, which is what we do. And generally they have a mission, whether broad or more narrow. So ours is quite narrow.
So tell us about one of the cases you've won.
So, me specifically or just the firm? Here, I'll go with the firm. So that I don't have,
however you want to do it.
So, I guess if you know anything about First Liberty, you know about our Coach Kennedy case.
Okay.
That is a case about a high school football coach in Washington who was motivated by facing the Giants, and after the games would go out and say a prayer on the 50-yard line to thank God for, he had a rough life. So a lot of that was just showing gratitude to God for changing his life. And he was fired for that.
Wow.
And we litigated for that case started. I think I was entering law school when my firm started that case. And 7 years later, we won at the U.S. Supreme Court.
7 years.
Yeah. And the Supreme Court made it very clear that just because you're a public employee doesn't mean you lose your constitutional rights. You can't be silenced. You can't be, punished for it, certainly.
Yeah.
So that there's actually a movie out right now about that case. So
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So
does someone play you?
No one plays me. Someone does play the CEO, Kelly.
That's funny.
Yeah, I think he was hoping Matthew McConaughey would play him, but no such luck there.
Wow, that would have been really nice. I would have watched it just for him.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I like Matthew McConaughey.
Me too. It's nice to look at.
But that is so amazing.
Yeah, it's cool.
So for the 7 years.
So we lost a lot. We lost pretty much every time. Lost at the district court. Wow. Then you go to the appeals court. This is all federal litigation. Anything constitutional law will typically be federal litigation. So we started at the district court. We lost. Appeals court, we lost. We went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is, they decide legal issues. They don't find facts. Okay. If that makes sense. So they thought there were facts that were undeveloped. So it's the district court's job to make sure all the facts are clear, right?
Yeah.
So we went all the way back down and had to clear whatever those facts were, and then we went all the way back up again. Lost at the district court, lost at the Court of Appeals, then went back to the U.S. Supreme Court, and when we won.
Wow, and that's what took 7 years.
Yes.
Wow.
Long time. So our client, if he had paid for that case,
yeah, he would have spent millions.
About $5 million, I think is the last total I heard, and he did not pay a dime for.
Wow,
that's amazing.
Fees. Yeah. So really cool. I think we had another case that's broader an impact that we just won this past summer called Groff, and this is about a postal worker who couldn't work on Sundays, right? And his accommodation was always granted until the post office gets into contract with who do you think?
Who?
Donald Trump.
Amazon.
Oh.
Like, huh?
Amazon. Okay. Amazon's making the postal service.
Like, huh?
Amazon makes the postal. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so Amazon is asking the postal service to deliver on Sundays, right? We all like getting our packages like an hour after we order them.
Okay.
For sure.
We all love this. But people have to deliver those packages.
Yeah.
and he asked for an accommodation, was not given one. There was an old Supreme Court case that basically said, unless it's, even a minimal burden on the employer, they can say no. So we went up to the Supreme Court, challenged that under the constitutional law, and precedent said that case is wrong, you guys should overturn it. So not only did our client win that case, Groff, but we were able to overturn a case that case will impact everyone who works ever.
Awesome.
Right? Anyone who ever needs a religious accommodation because they want to wear a hijab or yarmulke or whatever, and somebody tells them they can't do that, whether it be at school or the post office or wherever, any public employer, and private employers too, under many cases, have to follow this.
Wow.
So it is very impactful.
Wow.
And so we're very proud of the work that we're doing, even though we're such a small organization, but we do a lot of
big impact.
Yes, big impact. That's right.
Beyonce a lawyer. That's all I'm saying. And the only reason why I'm saying Beyonce is because she's considered a huge icon in the music world. So I'm connecting that. I'm not saying that you are Beyonce. I'm saying the status
For sure.
that you have with being a lawyer. I put you as high as I possibly could because you're so super-tastic at what you're doing.
No, I appreciate it.
And I'm so proud of you for that.
Thank you.
So there's a lot going on in the world, right? And
much.
you find out things sometimes that we don't even know, or there are particular subjects that are happening that we need to be in prayer for. So if you could, I would like for you to maybe share a few things that we may overlook or we minimize, or we don't necessarily see what's right in front of us, something that you would consider important for us to keep our minds on or keep our eyes open to.
Well, the thing that comes to mind is deception. You just can't trust everything that's in front of you, whether it's news or whatever, because very few people out there are telling you, not necessarily that they're telling you a lie always outright, but they're not always telling you the complete truth.
Yeah.
And without all the facts, or at least the big major facts, it's going to be hard for you to make a decision about a topic without having all that information. And very rarely is a 5-second clip on social media going to give you that, or a headline or whatever. And so my caution is for everyone to reserve judgment until you feel like you have enough facts, to actually form an opinion about things. Because what I see happen a lot is people who are very passionate about an issue, and I ask them like some very basic fundamental questions and they can't answer it, meaning they don't know what they're talking about, and they're really passionate about it. So
where is the passion coming from?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, and you've allowed people to stir up your emotions without giving you any information.
Loud and wrong.
Yes. And when people can do that to you, they control you.
Yeah.
Right? Because they control your emotions, they control what your opinions are, even though they're not well founded, may not be well informed, whatever. And they can encourage you to do things that you really shouldn't do, or support things you really shouldn't support. So that is my warning. Is just don't trust everything you hear. And and I know it's very overwhelming. There's a lot of information out there, but if there's something you really care about, for example, you care about education, you care about criminal justice, you care about whatever, do a little bit more digging in that area. And so you can say that, yes, my opinion about this is well informed. And I think that's probably the biggest thing, because the people I see who get into a lot of these really major, nasty confrontations, they know the least about the subject matter.
Yeah.
Wow. So become informed before you try to fight about a thing.
Know your knowledge.
Have some information to back up the confrontation.
Pretty much. That's what it's given.
Would you say?
I would say that that's accurate. Yes.
I love that so much.
Thank you.
So what's next for you? Like, you're single?
I am, yes.
And,
I am single. Yeah.
And so being out here in these single streets, what has that been like for you, Keisha? Like, this is 2024. We're going into 2025. And you've experienced some things in your lifetime. So give us some before or some back thens as opposed to now. Like, what is the dating world like?
Well, I'm not really out here on these streets. I probably should be out a little more if I want to, date. But I think, learned so much about myself.
Yeah.
And I have learned, online isn't really for me.
Got it.
I've tried it a couple times. It's just doesn't work for me, because for me, I really like to get to know people.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I do, historically, I won't say this happens all the time, but I date my friends a lot because I know them. I'm comfortable with them. I trust them. I know where they're. So I don't often just meet people and start dating them. And so that, I would say that that things have changed a little bit because I've leaned into that truth about myself a little more. Like, that's just who I am, and I feel like that is, for me, the safest way to find someone. It may take a little longer, or it may not be as, I don't know, there's not as much quantity, in terms of the amount of people you're going to meet that you want to date. But for me, it makes me feel more comfortable, and I do feel like this is the best path for me. And the other thing is, I'm not as obsessed with getting married as I was when I was younger. I mean, I do want that, but I also realize that I'm making a choice to wait for someone I believe God has called me to be with. And not to sound super cliche about that part, but I have not found someone I felt like God said yes to.
Yeah.
And I think that at least is, I think that's
Very
a reasonable, that's a reasonable ask for a
sure.
Christian. So and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with waiting until God deems it the right time.
All right, I like that. So who is Charlotte?
Charlotte is my cute, adorable, black mini Labradoodle. She's about 18 pounds. She is sassy and cute.
has a huge personality.
Oh my gosh.
The cutest thing.
No idea. No idea. She's adorable. That's my little sidekick. And getting Charlotte was amazing. I never had a dog before her.
Okay.
I wasn't allowed to have dogs.
Oh, wow.
No. Yeah, my mom was like, we can have
freedom.
fish. And I'm like, that's not...
No.
It's not the same.
It's not the same at all.
It definitely is not. And so I wanted to, I didn't really like living alone at that point in time. And I felt like, okay, maybe a dog would be fun. Got a dog. And it's been really great. She's such a great sidekick. Dogs are extremely entertaining company.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been cool. I've had a good time with her, and
That's really awesome.
She's really, really cute.
She is. She's cute.
She's the cutest baby.
So I also know, Keisha, that you have gone through quite a bit with family. And if you don't mind, I'd like you also to just share a little bit about your mom.
So let's see. The last couple of years have been difficult. My mom, she has dementia, and it's accelerated what they call early onset. And mom was probably 68 she's probably 66 or something when she was actually diagnosed. And over the years, she's gotten progressively worse. And I have friends out there I know who've dealt with parents who have dementia, and it's really heartbreaking, to watch. So that was very difficult for me. It took a lot out of me to accept that it was happening. And then so last year, my sister died suddenly. So she and I talked basically every day. She was the sister my mother was living with at the time. And so it was...
How old was your sister?
My sister was 49.
Wow.
And she, she's got twin boys. And husband, she's been with him a long time, probably 30 years or something.
Wow.
So it was a rough transition. We're getting through it, I think, just fine. I think her family's doing as well as they can do, but the impact of both of those things at once on me was it was dramatic. And I think I'm still learning, how to process that, how to live in a place of pain while also not being sort of paralyzed by it.
Yeah.
And moving forward and, doing all the things in life that we all have to do.
For sure.
But yes, it was painful, and it still is.
So you use the word paralyzed, what could that possibly look like? If you chose to be in that world of paralyzation, what would that look like?
Well, I think in some respects it's happened in my life. You know, you kind of start withdrawing and I think you try to avoid situations that you think will cause you pain because you don't want it to be compounded on what you're already feeling, which can make it so you miss out on things that could actually be beneficial, or you bury yourself in something. I think for me, my most frequent, I think, sin pattern is to bury myself in work.
Got it.
You know, to overwork and pretend all these things are not happening as, you know, or at least they're not impacting you as much as they really are.
Right.
And so I think that idea of being paralyzed is just kind of feeling like you're trying to do as little as possible, or you're trying to do as little as possible because you want to rest.
Yeah.
You know, but then you're doing all the wrong things as well. Too much of that, which is making you too busy to actually like do the things you should be doing, right? Like praying and Bible study and all these things that sometimes will pull you out of that place.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, still working through it. Okay. Certainly. But we're still standing. So
Amen.
We're gonna keep doing that.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you, Keisha. And the reason why I wanted you to share that, because that word, I believe, is sometimes it's not said, but the actions are there. And so to hear you communicate that for that person that may be watching, just for them to understand this might be the state that I'm in, but she's helping me to see that I am in that place and that I could be doing something different.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we always see the bright side of things and that, you know, you should just do this. But what about if you are in that paralyzed state? What does that look like? And like you said, sometimes it's realizing that you're in that space and saying to yourself, I should be doing something different to bring me out of it.
Yeah, I think one of the things I talked about was just, you know, feeling like you want to preserve yourself, your feelings, you want to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And I think one of the best things you can do is invite someone very close to you to that pain, and they can start speaking encouragement and life over you again. Because sometimes you do need someone to sort of like pull you out of that hole, right?
Yeah.
And you can't do it alone. Now, that doesn't mean you need to go broadcast it on your podcast.
Right.
Sure.
If you're not ready to talk about how you were healed from it, I think that's beneficial. But when you're in the midst of something like that, I do think it's important to have, you know, one or two people around you who can just kind of walk with you every day, talk to you, and just be there to watch a movie with you or whatever it is. I think that's really important when you feel that way, when you feel like you're in pain and you're trying to kind of get over sort of an emotional hump. It's important not to let yourself just be stagnant and stay there. And so that's what I always feel like it's important to share those things.
Yeah.
Because I know there are a lot of people who feel that way. But the best way to ensure that you don't continue feeling that way is to keep going.
Amen.
Right? Like,
Amen.
you know, you're guaranteed to feel better if you just keep going.
Keep going. Hashtag
Keep going. I love it.
Well, we have enjoyed Keisha Toni Russell on today. And so what we do here, Keisha, this is where we ask at the end of the show, what are we okay with? And so Chyna, after listening to Keisha and then hearing about her processes, what are you okay with?
I would say I'm okay with opening my horizons of my personality. And be more extroverted instead of introverted so much, and being obedient to what God is calling me to do. So yeah.
Amen. That's so good. And I'm going to say pretty much something similar to that. After listening to Keisha, I am okay with hearing the voice of God and going ahead and submitting to his authority and doing what he says. That's what I'm okay with.
You makes you mean that?
Oh, he tries me on a regular. So yeah, but you said also, if he calls you to do something, be ready to do that. But sometimes it's just stop, don't go.
Yeah, sometimes it's that too.
Yeah, sometimes it's just a movement on action that needs to take place right then and there. So that's what I'm saying. Not that I wouldn't do the other thing, but sometimes he just wants us to take action right when he tells us to. Mm-hmm. So I'm open to that. Yeah. Go ahead. What you okay with? What are you okay with?
I'm okay with just sharing some of the difficult things that, I've been through, just so hopefully someone else can grab onto something and feel like they have hope and encouragement. So I'm okay with that, even though there's a time when I would not have been. I was like, you want me to talk about what?
Yeah, but you are so wonderful, girl. You have blessed me on today. I heard a few nuggets that I'm taking away. So I just thank you. I thank you for being transparent. And, I told you I was going to ask you a few things. So I did. I did what I said.
You did. Yes, you did.
So this is where we close out with our audience. And so we want to make sure that you all are tuning in weekly on YouTube Wednesdays at 9 a.m. But you can follow us on social media at the OK Den Show on Instagram. And also, I'm going to be uploading some of these on Facebook. So get ready for that as well.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, you can always listen to us as well on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Make sure y'all are subscribing, liking, and commenting. Telling us what your thoughts are on the things Keisha had to say today and just how you enjoyed our episode.
How about that? Mm-hmm. Well, you all know we're about to lift.
Yes.
So Keisha, we say, okay then, body in together. Okay then, body in. You ready? Here we go. Okay then, body in.